Mic check, mic check. As we proceed to give you what you need. Peace, peace, peace. Welcome in, welcome in. Welcome back to another session of Sunday studies or Sun studies, is what we prefer. Welcome back to another session of Sun studies. As we proceed to give us what we need. I'm back. Thank you for being here last week. Thank you for bearing with me. I was here, but I wasn't all the way here. I was not feeling well at all. I was not feeling well at all. Um, my body, we when we open up and we pray for health in all areas of life, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as financial, we really got to be mindful and basically how my father always used to say, you better watch what you ask for, you just might get it. And so I didn't realize how many, toxins was in my body, even though I don't eat filthy. But, even then, most times, like Muhammad said, anytime you eating, you taking on filth. So I didn't realize how many toxins. Assalamu alaikum, sister. How you doing? Welcome back. It's a pleasure to see you. Um, and so my body was just getting rid. I wasn't even eating anything. I was under a forced fast. I wasn't eating anything, just water and some ginger to settle my stomach, and my body was just day after day just getting rid. And I wasn't even feeding myself anything. It was still getting rid. So what that told me during that fasting, it was a forced fast during that process, is it was just getting rid of a lot of toxic waste from my body. And so that was part of that answering of a prayer to be healthy. You don't just we don't believe in a spook and mystery God. Um, so when you pray for anything, you're most likely going to be given a process. They got that old saying that, there was a man who prayed to God for cake, and God answered his prayer with flour, eggs, sugar, and a list of of ingredients. And he got upset with God and walked away. I think that's relevant to a lot of us. Um, so I am back, feeling a lot better. One of the things that my wife says I do this all the time, but I don't remember. But after I was sick and I started to eat again, I could literally taste all the different flavors and spices in all the foods I was eating. She says that I say that every time I get sick, but I don't remember. I don't remember doing that. But it just shows how surreal the feeling is every time I eat, I could taste. And then I was like, thankfully, every single time that I get under the weather or sick, and then I start to um, uh, heal or recover, we begin to remove something from our diet that through that process, I'm remember like the last time I said we started to remove the bioengineered. So this time I could taste the difference between where we were getting our vegetables. I could taste the difference between vegetables at the regular grocery store and then vegetables at the so-called quote unquote health food store. And so I said we can't even get vegetables from the grocery store. It's called Malama. Can't even get vegetables from there over there anymore. Even though it was organic, I could still taste the difference. And one tasted toxic. It tasted rubbery, and it tasted like it just didn't have any substance to it. So I said we can't even go there anymore. So we getting vegetables. God willing, inshallah, one day we have our own vegetables. So we don't got to be so reliant on people outside that may not have our best health and interest in mind. Sister said, I'm good doing homework. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm doing much better today than I was last week. Recovered from being under the weather. And it was all part of the process. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that. It also prepared my mind to be prepared for other things that I may be praying for. So if I'm praying for health physically and then I get sick so that I can overcome the sickness and then change my diet, oh, we're going to have some hell to pay for praying for health mentally, praying for health spiritually. We're going to have hell to pay, praying for health financially, going through hell to pay right now. So all praises are due to Allah, nonetheless. Sister says she's doing homework. If I'm not mistaken, you said you were doing veterinary veter. No, that was your girlfriend doing significant. I mean, your girlfriend doing veterinarian work. Um, Homework. What kind of homework you doing? I'm in school for medical billing coding. Whoa, medical billing coding. Oh, so that's like when you're sending out a bill or an invoice, it's got different codes. Like CPU could mean something. Are you studying those codes, or is this coding for the computer algorithm to know how to organize that stuff? Which one is that? Or am I wrong completely? I never heard of medical billing coding. Yes. Okay. So there's different codes to the different types of billing and stuff like that. Real quick, is my microphone working on Instagram? Peace, welcome in, welcome in. We're gonna get started here shortly. I was just giving thanks to God for allowing me to recover from being unhealthy, bringing me into health. Oh man. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Medical building and coding. That's beautiful. Yeah, there's always that's a perfect example of. I think we did have a conversation about that. How like there's different codes and you start to read even in the scripture. I don't know if you take the time to read like the Quran and the Bible, even the teaching Most High Elijah Muhammad. But there's always different say codes. It's not as cryptic as that, but there are. It's like a different language. Medical billing, the medical industry has its own language, and so that's also the same as it's the codes for what you're in the hospital or clinic for. I see. I see. I know the police force got the same or similar type of thing too. The 10-4 and the 10 chart 10 codes. All right. Well, without further ado, um, I'm glad that you are doing well. I'm glad that you're doing your homework. I'm gonna get started here, and before we get started, I want to open up in the name of Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom we forever and ever give praise and thanks for raising a divine leader, teacher, guide, and example in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In these two great and holy names, I greet the brother and sisters in the universal understanding of peace of Assalamu alaikum. And I want to be real clear when I say raising up among us a divine leader. Uh, when the Allah, Master Farad Muhammad, found the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was not in a divine state. It was a process of development and raising up from that dead state or that dead condition that brought him into his divinity. So I say that to say that Master Farad Muhammad experimenting and resurrecting up a dead man and bringing him into divinity is the sign for us as a dead people that we also need to be raised into our own divinity upon our own self. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, accept your own and be yourself. And then he went on and taught us about our own divinity. And through the process of his development, he was showing and proving. So I don't want us to get spooky and think that, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born divine and he was, how the Bible was always talking about some uh what do you call it? Immaculate conception and things. We don't want to get too spooky. The man was a black man and from Georgia and was given supreme wisdom and rose him up from a dead state into his original capacity, his original form, in that divine mind. And so that was to show and prove to us what that looks like. So all praises are due to Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. With that being said, and we also spoke on the health. Now, again, we're reminded that this is another session of our sun study. So we're going to get into some studies of the sun, and that sun being the truth. We also opened up in the universal understanding of peace. The universal understanding of peace. And we say in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum, which simply means may peace be with you. Now, I want to give us a brief, this is some studies that I did on my own that I'm bringing forth the result of those studies here to continue on to these studies of the invincible truth. So, although we have titled this session Sun Studies, it is not the complete embodiment of all the studies that's going down. All right. So today is February the 23rd. Today's title of our invincible truth is Islam for American so-called Negroes. Islam for American so-called Negroes. And this title has been coming up a few times in the last few weeks. So we really want to highlight the importance of basically why we're here, Islam being that invincible truth. Now, when we open up in the name of Allah and we greet one another in peace, in Arabic, in the universal understanding of peace, I really want to highlight this concept before we get started in invincible truth, this universal understanding of peace. Now, when we say Assalamu alaikum, if we translate it out of Arabic into English, which we speak English, it simply means may peace be with you. Now, in John, in the Bible, in the book of John in the Bible, chapter 20, verse 19, I'm going to read. It says, on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. Now, why is this important? Well, we should be, if not, we should be familiar with the fact that Jesus did not speak English. At least the Jesus here from 2,000 years ago did not speak English. He spoke Hebrew and Arabic or Aramaic. So if we go through those different translations, in English, he said, may peace be with you, or peace be with you. If he was speaking Hebrew, which he spoke Hebrew, he would have said, Shalom Alaikum. If he was speaking Arabic, which he could have, he would have said, Assalamu Alaikum, or Assalamu Alaikum. Now, this is important because in our article today from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is called Islam for American So-Called Negroes. Now, American so-called Negroes, we don't speak Hebrew or Arabic. We speak a bastard language as English, and we even speak a bastardization of the bastard language English. So when a man comes and teaches us Islam for us, the Holy Quran makes mention of every people given a messenger that speaks their own language. So us as American so-called Negroes, and really we can even eliminate the American because we're so far spread, we populate the entire planet, so-called Negroes. And we don't speak Arabic, we don't speak Hebrew, we speak English. However, what I wanted to highlight in that title of Islam for American so-called Negroes in previous sessions and previous study sessions, we went over the definition of Islam. Islam meaning peace or entire submission to Allah. Now, as I was going through studies, all praise is due to Allah, I was revealed a further emphasis on how this word salam or Islam is defined. It's simply stated as entire submission to Allah, which we bear witness to. But as we delve deeper into our studies, we were made known of how in depth the word salam actually is. Now, when we go into English, languages are languages. When we go into English and we see a word, it's mathematical. When we take a look at a word, our sentences, our statements are mathematical equations. That's why the lessons command us to speak proper, perfect, present, past, and future tense. So when we speak, we want to speak grammatically correct so that the mathematics 1 + 1 = 2 every time. When I made mention of us as so-called Negroes speaking a bastardization of a bastard language, when we speak, the mathematics don't always equal up. Well, you could say stuff like, that don't even make no sense. So when we calculate that equation, that don't, which is a negative, even make no, which is a negative, since it doesn't add up to the result that we are intending to speak forth, to say. The message that we were desiring to convey, the message that we want to say, it doesn't equal up to what we intended it to equal up to. That don't make no sense. Is not mathematically or grammatically correct. Why is that important? Well, we want to make sure that because we are taught in the lessons, Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam and can be proven at no limit of time. Whenever we are dealing with mathematics, we want to make sure that all factors of the equation are in alignment with exactly the result that we want to produce. So when we say Islam is mathematics, that means 1 + 1 equals, or excuse me, if we say Islam is mathematics, that there's no plus. It's Islam is mathematics. That means 1 = 1. Islam is mathematics. 1 equals 1. And then the equation or the equation is flipped, and mathematics is Islam. So the same could be said, 1 equals 1, and you flip it, 1 equals 1. So why is that important? When we look at language and we understand that even words can be broken down what's called etymologically, meaning there's a root word like the root pre. The root pre, or the prefix of pre, meaning before. So when we look up like a word named, a word called prescribe, that means something is written beforehand. Prescribe. That's how we can tell that words, when we do studies, this is what we're doing, we're studying. So when we uh, conduct studies and we look at words like prescribe, then we can mathematically dissect the fact that those are two words that are added together to create a new thought. Pre, meaning before, and scribe, meaning to write. Prescribe, meaning it was written beforehand. Similar would be like prophecy, something written beforehand. Why is that important? When we look at the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad telling us Islam for American so-called Negroes, and what I was interested in, and I went into the Bible and I wanted to find, I said, how many times in the Bible is peace be with you mentioned? Now, what I was uncovered, not the phrase peace be with you, but the Bible in a totality mentioned peace more than 50 times. Over more than 50 verses in the Bible mentions or has something to do with peace. Now, why is that important? What's peace got to do with Islam? I had already mentioned that in the book of John, chapter 20, verse 19, Jesus already, after his resurrection, greeted his disciples with peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom alaikum. So that concept of peace was already existent in the New Testament when Jesus greeted his disciples. Peace be with you. And we know Jesus didn't speak English. But that wasn't enough for my studies. I wasn't satisfied. Say, okay, that takes care of the quote unquote New Testament. But what about for the people who got a little bit of that Old Testament in them, where they don't want to turn the other cheek? They don't want to let somebody smack them and take advantage of them. What about those people who are saying, no, God said an eye for an eye? What about the people who want to stick to the original essence of the teachings and haven't gotten that far? Where is their peace? So I went into and I said, let me see how the Old Testament talks about peace. Because if we are taught that Islam is older than the sun, moon, and stars, it says, what is the said birth record of the what is the birth record of the said nation of Islam? The said nation of Islam has no birth record, has no beginning nor ending. Then that means that Islam, by sheer mathematics, has to predate any type of testament, whether it be Old or New Testament. Islam has to predate it. And so if it can be proven at no limited time, then I should be able to go in and prove that. I should be able to go in the Bible and see, well, if you're talking about peace, Islam means peace, then show and prove that not only in the New Testament, where Jesus, who is much more of a peaceful character in society, quote unquote, then show and prove that peace was existent or Islam was existent in the Bible in the Old Testament. So then I said, okay, let's find that out. So I went into the Old Testament. Now, the Old Testament has many variations, meaning that to us who read the Bible and we see the Bible, it's split into Old Testament, New Testament. When really, and we'll get to it, should just be complete testament. But we ain't there right now. In the quote unquote Old Testament is also known as the Torah to the Jews. Now, the Torah was the compilation of the books that was given to the quote unquote Jews from Moses. That's where you get that an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's from Moses. Now, many of the people who follow the quote unquote New Testament, they're not going to even tell you that most of the time Jesus was saying, he was referring back to Moses. He was saying, I did not come to remove the law, speaking about Moses. I came to fulfill that law, speaking about Moses. Most people don't want to tell you that. But anyway, what I wanted to make mention of is that Moses greeted with shalom. Shalom. So all in the Old Testament, when we're talking about peace in the New Testament, Jesus talking about assalamu alaikum, meaning may peace be with you. In the Old Testament, they greeted with shalom. Shalom is peace. It doesn't say may peace be with you. It just says shalom. Shalom means peace. Now, why is this important? Well, I started to go into the etymology or the mathematics and the equation of this word shalom. Because I wanted to know if Jesus was talking about may peace be with you, and it's in Arabic, assalamu alaikum, and in Hebrew, it's asshalom alaikum. I wanted to know, and I wanted to be able to prove through these studies to myself that peace not only existed from the before the beginning, but I wanted to show and prove in the Old Testament where peace could be found. And it was all throughout, all throughout. But I'm not going to get into every verse today. What I want to get into is the etymology or the mathematical breakdown of this word shalom, which I thought was completely interesting. So in the Old Testament, it says here, shalom is a greeting word for peace, but it carries a deeper meaning than just the absence of conflict. So peace in this essence here. Now, real quickly, the reason why we say English is a bastard language is because it robs and steals from other languages and forms and makes up, it's a grafted language. We really should, instead of calling it a bastard language, you really could just call it a devil language. Because how do you get devil? You get devil by grafting from the original. So English is a devil language because it grafted from the original. It doesn't operate the same way that original languages operate. What do I mean by that? Well, we can simply look at a word like though. Though, though. Any intelligent human being will say, well, if it just says though, then why won't we just eliminate these random letters? Why not just spell it THO? Why we got to waste another UGH? That's how most children will think like that because they're intelligent. They'll look at like the word knife and it's spelled KNIFE. Why do we have to waste these letters? Well, because when you graph from original, it also removes the essence, but all praises are due to Allah. When you graph from original, it keeps the essence, but it has a semblance of the image. It looks the same, but it's not the same in essence. Praise due to Allah. So when we look at words like though, THOUGH, and we think like, why does it have these extra letters? It's not that the letters are extra, it's just that we don't have the capacity or the mind to make use of that resource. It's not though in reality. It's more like though. That's what that GH, it has essence to it, but we don't use it because we have not been taught how to take advantage of those resources available because it's a devil language. It's grafted out of original. In its original form, we would have taken advantage of all resources of the complete letter, or excuse me, of the complete word. And what happens is, and not to get too deep into the use of language, when you have these different instructions of words that tell us what to do with our voice, like the or other words, it activates in our, they call it the throat chakra, or they have different languages of it, but our voice. When we, the voice vibrates. So when we activate that vibration in our voice, it sends signals to the mind or to the brain to start connecting different synapses. That's why it's important for us to be able to learn different languages. But not to get too far into that. I don't want to get too far. But the point being is that in the devil language of English, when we use this, when in the in the devil language of English, when we use those and we eliminate those different uh, tones, the tonalities of language, then we miss out on a lot of the benefit of speaking. So when we go into the origin, it says here. Oh, I remember. In original languages, words are a construct more than the devil language of English. Like I said, when you look at the word prescribe, that is a rudimentary or basic mathematical equation. Well, in original languages, that mathematical equation exists, but it's not basic. It's much more, it's like algebra. So when you have words, they call them Semitic languages like Hebrew and Arabic, which is our original tongue, our original language. We are the Semitic people of the planet. We are the original people of the planet. When you see languages that are our original, you can see that they're broken down into roots. And Arabic breaks down into trilateral roots. Now, I pray I haven't lost you this far. I'm going into the language of peace, of salam, of shalom. Now, when you have a word in Arabic and Hebrew or Aramaic, and they share the same source, the original source or Semitic language, Arabic words are broken down into a trilateral root, meaning you can boil down every single word into having a root, and the root consists of 3 letters. Now, in English, we call them the alphabet, but English doesn't operate that way. It doesn't boil down into roots. The root languages are all over the place. You got prefixes, suffixes, subjects, predicates, all different variables into one word, or excuse me, into a sentence. Subjects and predicates has to do with the sentence. And I'm not even going to front like I'm a master of English, which I'm not. I did get my minor in English, but when I got my minor in English, that I was able to bear witness of the mathematical uh, essence of words. But anyway, when we look at the word shalom or salam, the trilateral root is sa or sa, lem, and meme or salama. Sa, lem, meme, trilateral. Though, so, and from the root, it grows into different words. This is how the language, this is how we originally spoke. We had a root and we grew from the root. So the root of Islam, the root of salam, the root of shalom, shalom, salam has the same root, salameh, salamim. So it says here, when you look at the word shalom, it says it's a greeting word for peace, but it carries a deeper meaning than just the absence of conflict. This is a very similar way of how original people use names. You in the bastard language of English, you could have anybody have any type of name, don't have no origin to it. This is what most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, get out of the devil's names because they have no meaning. Even the Bible says a good name is worth more than silver and gold. So if a good name is worth more than silver and gold, why in the American culture do people just, I just pick any name, just name him whatever? Because they don't value. We can get in more into that as well, but the purpose of me mentioning that is to show that even every word that's used has a deeper significance than what we just originally assumed it to be. So it says here, shalom carries a deeper meaning than just the absence of conflict. So most people will think that peace just means the absence of conflict, and then they just go on about their day. Or I strive for peace, and that just means you ain't arguing. But here it says, nah, this significant. the word shalom, which has the same root of salam or salameh, salemim, same root. It says it signifies a state of wholeness, a state of wholeness or completeness. It signifies a well-being and prosperity, essentially total harmony and righteousness in all aspects. And I thought that this was profound and highly important. And I could do nothing but break down, give all praise due to Allah. Because I started to see the different components. For one, it says wholeness and completeness. It says total harmony and righteousness in all aspects. So I started to see how I was led to open up in health, to pray for health in all aspects. My father teaching us about holistic health, not just focusing on one aspect, but holistically, taking a holistic approach to problems. So that means that shalom or salam or peace has nothing to do or not only to do with just the absence of conflict, but a holistic approach, you looking at things from all angles. We pray for health from Allah, not just physically, but in all aspects. Not just mentally, but in all aspects. Not just spiritual health, but in all aspects. Not just emotional health, but in all aspects. And this is the everyone's favorite, not just financially healthy, but in all aspects. This is to show and prove that money is not going to save us. We should have already known this by now, but even the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And so what happens as soon as we get a little bit of freedom, first thing we want to do is go get some money, which is not a bad thing. It's not horrible, but all of our energy goes into chasing after money rather than healing all aspects and just having finances be a part of that process. Because if you're a flawed character while you broke, and you a flawed character while you traumatized, then you're gonna be a flawed character when you got some money. It's just gonna be overly enhanced. And that's the part of the problem that we're seeing. The part of the problem is that most people think that being broke is the problem. That being broke is not the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. So anyway, so I'm reminded of praying for a holistic solution, health in all areas. But it goes even deeper than that. It says that the root of shalom, the word shalom comes from the Hebrew root shalem, which means whole or complete. Which means whole or complete. Now, why is that important? Because remember, I wanted to prove through these studies, I wanted to prove that Islam existed all throughout the Bible. Now, it wasn't enough that we went through the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and he emphasized where we as original people, peace and Islam is of our nature. That's what planted the seed. But I said, okay, well, let me go ahead and go into the Bible and let me see if I can prove that from a different angle. It says here the word shalom comes from the Hebrew root shalem, which means whole or complete. So that concept of being whole or complete, I said, where have I heard that from? That sounds familiar. Because again, I was going into the studies and I want to see, where have I heard that from? That sounds familiar, whole and complete. So we go into the Holy Quran, chapter 5, verse 3, and it says, this day have I perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as a religion. I said, hold on. I got to read that one again because that was just too much. It says, this day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as a religion. So if the root, again, we're talking about the root of salam, the root of shalom, the very root of these words not only means the absence of conflict, but it means wholeness and complete. The very root of the word of Islam doesn't necessarily just mean peace or the absence of conflict. By its very nature, it means to be whole or complete. And when we are given this, it says here in the Quran, this day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as a religion. So when we were given Islam, not only was the title peace, not only did the word mean wholeness or complete, but by us being given this Islam, this way of life, the the title matched the essence. Being whole and complete was in its very uh, uh, root. Being whole and complete. And if that wasn't enough, I even went even further. I said, you know what? Going and I traced back. I said, okay, I started with the the New Testament, from where Jesus said, "May peace be with you," and I bear witness that he didn't speak English. And then I went to the Old Testament. I said, okay, let's see if they was talking about peace in the Old Testament, talking about shalom, shalom meaning wholeness and complete peace. Then we went into Holy Quran and said, "I'll complete my favor on you." Complete my favor, giving us whole and complete peace. Said, okay, where else can I find this? Then I started to remember about my son's name, Jerusalem. So where did I get that concept from of breaking it down? His name is Jah-Ru Salem. Jah, God, Ru, meaning the essence or that spirit of God in flesh, and Salem, which obviously I knew meant peace. But I said, hold on. Now, with this newfound perspective of salam or salem, not only meaning peace, but wholeness or completeness, let me go back to the origin and see if I can see something new. And I said, okay, in the Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, it says Jerusalem is a name given by the Jews, which means founded in peace. I said, oh man, that's deep. Because in order for something to be found and founded, it must have been completed. It says founded in peace, meaning that peace was the very, not only material that it was made out of, but the process of creation or finding was also in peace. Jerusalem was founded in peace. So the process of creating, of founding, and completing it was all encompassing. That same root can be found in Arabic. The same root of shalom is the same thing in salam in Arabic, which just means whole, and also has uh, an essence of safety. Okay, now I want to slowly transition into our subject. Well, we've been in the subject of Islam, which the article from Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is about Islam. But I want to just make a mention of a title that's been heavy on my mind, and I've been doing various different studies offline throughout my day. And that was the story of Cain and Abel. Now, I don't know how many of us are familiar with the story of Cain and Abel, but there's essence or lessons in that story for us to study upon. And so there's a story of Cain and Abel without getting too far into, Adam and Eve. But Cain and Abel were brothers. Cain, his he was older, he was the oldest. His job was working the land. And then he had a brother Abel whose job was to tend to the flock. And so there was a command from Allah, from God, to bring an offering. And Cain brought various vegetables and fruits from his harvest. And Abel brought the very firstborn from his flock. And it says very with, and this is what caused me to go deeper into studying this story, because I was like, hold on, this is needs more investigation, because of the words that were used in the Bible. It said that God showed regard, or he regarded Abel's offering, but had no regard for Cain's. I said, what kind of what kind of righteous God is going to obviously show regard towards one and disregard another? And so I was like, I need to look more into this. And I was doing hours and hours. I was reading, I was watching videos and reading articles, and it boiled down to a few different points. Cain was given an offering to God. And I was thinking, they both were given offering. Why would one offering be better than the other? Where is God valuing a live offering more than offering from the earth? He's got fruits and vegetables from his harvest, but that's all he had. But Abel was given an offering from his flock. That's what he had. Why would you regard one without regarding the other? And we're not explicitly told the reasoning in the Bible, but what we are told is from here. I'll read it because we are studying. I don't want to paraphrase. Let's get to it so we can get the real true essence. It's in chapter 4, Genesis. Right here. Cain and Abel. So it says here, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? So God is saying, if you do well, will you not be accepted? So obviously God's telling him he ain't do too well. So I'm like, why didn't he do well? He gave him an offering. I don't understand. And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. So God is giving him instructions. He's saying, look, I understand you're not doing well. But if you want to do well, then do well. But if you don't do well, you're going to be overcome with sin, with hatred and jealousy. It says here, its desire is contrary to you. I mean, it's not of your nature to be that way, but you must rule over it. You got to take command and control over these emotions. That's when Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother and Abel killed him. He killed his own brother. So what I was wanting to go more into, it said Cain gave God of his, he offered God of his harvest. But the essence of that is Cain did not give the best of what he had. He just was offering whatever. So yeah, he threw random fruits and vegetables together out of his harvest. He didn't give the true and ripe, the best essence of his harvest. But when it came to Abel, Abel gave the firstborn of his flock. That was a lot of stories will say that that's supposed to be a sign of Jesus being the lamb. I don't go too heavily into those, signs, and not to say that I can't, and not to say that I won't, but that's just not a part of my studies at this time. I wanted to extract the essence because the story of Cain and Abel was weighing heavy on my mind to see, well, why, if two brothers was given an offering, why would Allah or God show regard to one offering and not another if they're both giving an offering? And It's in the Holy Quran. Allah does not look at people the way that we look at people. Allah sees the heart. And so when it came to the heart of Cain, when he was giving his offering, it wasn't pure and sincere. He didn't mean well for God. This is what God was saying. If you did well, then you would be well. But obviously, Cain was not willing to be well. Most people don't know there's Cain, Abel, and then they had a younger brother, Seth. From my understanding, and I don't want to go too far into it, but Cain killed Abel. So Abel was no more, but he was still righteous in the sight of God. But there had to be an essence of righteousness. So, and Cain didn't have it. Cain was cast out. His lineage was cursed. God cursed his lineage and said, if anybody takes vengeance on you, I'm going to pay them forward 7 times. Now, this is interesting, but anyway, so as far as Seth must have been able to observe and see these things and say, oh, I don't want to be like Cain. Abel was regarded highly in the sight of God and was known as being righteous. So Seth must have taken it upon himself to embody the righteousness that would have brought favor to him in the sight of God. But anyway, it was the heart of Cain that did not please God. It was the intent behind why he was doing what he was doing. God said, I need an offering, commanded an offering from them. Cain just threw stuff together. Oh, Abel took what was known as the best part. You know, the lesson says the original man settles on the best part. So his very basically submitting to the will of Allah. Allah commands, you know, in our prayer, surely I have turned myself to thee. It says my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah. My prayer, this is my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. So if we look at with that lens, at least that's what I do when I'm studying. I take the lens of what we were given to read that which we have. It's basically, I take the lens of what is known to read what is unknown to me. I don't know it all. I only know what I am given and take the time to read and submit to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so that is a lens that we're used to see the world. And so that's the lens that I use when I go through the studies. I say, okay, this is the Islam. That's what Islam is, a way of life. If it was a religion, it would cut me off. I wouldn't need to go into different areas of life. But Islam is a way of life. This is why we are taught how to eat to live. How? It's a process. It's a how. It's a lens of how to view things, how to operate and cooperate. A religion is what? A way of life is how. So when I'm going through these different studies of the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I take that lens and I go in and I take what is known so that I can uncover what is unknown and what is unknown to me, not to other people. What's unknown to me, these things are unknown to me. So I take the lens from the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and I go in and because I'm curious and I want to investigate those things that I don't know. And I never really investigated the story of Cain and Abel before like this. And so what it shows through that lens of Islam, going through the Bible and uncovering, I see character development. I see that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the original man, who is Allah, who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. But I also see that there's a unity of heart and mind. So our mind connects us to that one Allah, that one God. But we are limited to our flesh. So when we read the Bible and it says, and Allah or God, God created the heavens and the earth, and God said, let there be. The mind was of that oneness, but the flesh that we are subjected to is limited. So when we read these different character developments, it's not enough for us to say, I'm God, I'm God, I'm God. This is what the Bible says. And I can't, I don't know the exact verse, but that's part of my studies I'm going to have so that I don't just to say random verses. I want to be able to point exactly to where the verses are. It says, if those that are called by my name, many of us are called by the name of God. You know, some people who are by the name of slave masters is not even there yet. But those who are called by my name, if they will humble themselves. Anyway, so when I read these different verses and stories in the Bible, I'm looking at it from the lens of Islam as the process of character development. We look at Adam and Eve. They didn't listen to the instructions. So what do we learn? Listen to the instructions. Give a little bit of attention to your woman to know that she's not out there dealing with the serpent when you're not aware of it. When you have a brother, don't look over to what your brother's doing. Listen to the instructions from Allah, from God. We over here looking at his play. And I fall victim to these things. I'm like, man, what you see is not what God sees. Allah sees the heart. This is what the Bible, what the Holy Quran is talking about. And Satan made evil fair seeming. We have no idea what somebody else is going through. I have no idea what trials and tribulations and afflictions that somebody else is dealing with. Sometimes wealth and prosperity is that person's test. They say you want to know who a man truly is, give him power. So sometimes power and position is not a blessing, it's really a trial so that Allah has reason to condemn and to curse that person. This is what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about the lens. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Allah is giving respite or time to the devil to mistreat us so that he has a whole justification from wiping them off the face of the planet Earth. Well, that's not just them, that's all of us. Sometimes power, prestige, and position, it's a test to see, okay, and the Holy Quran said, we went over that. Holy Quran says, and they were given authority after them to see how they would behave, to see how they would operate, and to see how they would rule. So through that process of me going into the and really investigating the story of Cain and Abel and understanding that the heart, like our prayer says, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life and my death are all for Allah. Well, that's where it comes from. My prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah. So that's the word. The process of the story of Cain and Abel is the heart and that mind, they must align. So our words must reflect our actions and deeds, basically. All right. So all praise due to Allah. And that's where the instructions are. Okay. So now we're going into just want to make sure I covered. Okay. We're going into the article from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the book, An Invincible Truth by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but I do want to make mention now. I wrote to the brother directly. Inshallah, God willing, I'll be able to speak to him directly. But what I did was I mentioned the brother. I wrote to him. The brother's name is Melchizedek. Melchizedek Supreme Shabazz Allah is what he goes by. But I was watching a video of his, and he was talking about how he was initially introduced to the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, one of my favorite reasons why I enjoy listening to this brother is because he always opens up and ends with the solution to our problems being submitting to the teachings of Most High Elijah Muhammad, right and exact. Don't add to it. Don't take away from it. Just like how he said it. And I always appreciate hearing that. So I always did my best to listen to the things that he was putting out. And one of the stories that he told was, and not to go too much into his story, you should never retell someone else's story. I'm not going to retell the brother's story, but I want to highlight and give my appreciation to what even had me pick up this book, An Invincible Truth. I had no knowledge of it. So what the brother was talking about is he was in prison. I'm not going to tell the brother's story. He was in prison, and there was a brother in the prison who was teaching the teachings of Most High Elijah Muhammad. The brother who was teaching the teachings of Most High Elijah Muhammad had said something to him directly that basically checked him. He said, "Oh man, if the brother can speak like that, I need to know where what he's submitting to." Basically, so the brother gave him a stack of articles from the Pittsburgh Courier. It was a whole stack of articles from the Pittsburgh Courier. And Brother Melchizedek said he spent all night reading every single article. When the lights went out, he was reading it by the little nightlight in the halls. He couldn't put it down. He read every single article that the brother had gave him. The next day, he saw the brother that gave him the articles. The brother asked him, "Did you read those articles I gave you?" And he said, "Oh yes, sir, brother. I read every single one. I couldn't put it down." He said, "Every one?" He said, "Yes, sir. I read every single one." And so what he did, Brother Melchizedek said that those articles was compiled into a book, and that book is called An Invincible Truth. And so I said, "Oh, let me." If he had this brother who was uncompromising, was writing exact, and it got him inspired. And of course, he was telling his story about who he was prior to Islam. So I said, if it'll straighten up that type of brother, let me go ahead and get that book. So after him saying that, that's what got me to this book, and I had it for a while. And uh, like I said, Allah had commanded that I start getting up here and speaking, and I didn't want to be all over the place. So we were reading Message to the Black Man, and I had finally read this book, or opened up the book, and it was dated. I said, "Oh man!" And it just so happened that the first article in this book, all praises are due to Allah. It just so happened that the first date was uh, June the 9th, and it was approaching during my after my first few videos. It hadn't gotten to June yet. It was approaching June. So I said, okay. And I submitted the first article June 9th. That's when I started to align. June 9th, I put out a video, a study, a Sun Studies, June 16th, June 23rd, and so on and so forth, which brings us to today, February 23rd, 2025. And we are here reading this article in Invincible Truth, which was published in the Pittsburgh Courier. It was published on February 23rd, 1957, which is exactly 68 years. And then something else I thought was highly interesting about that, the number 68 years, um, when and I do my best. I searched for it, but I couldn't find exactly where the Most High Elijah Muhammad taught on it. So I can only make reference to the concept until I find exactly where it's written. But most people are known for the slave trade to begin in 1619, but we're taught by the Most High Elijah Muhammad that it began in 1555, and those 64 years were not known to the public, because during those 64 years is what the Caucasians were going through a process of breaking us, because when they first got us, we were in no condition to be slaves, which is all praise due to Allah. When they first got us, we were in no condition to be slaves. Think about that. Think about that. When the white man first stole us from the continent where we was at, we were in no condition to serve him, to be slaves. So he had to take 64 years in the Isles of the Caribbean, the islands in the Atlantic Ocean, 64 years to get us to a condition where we could be slaves. Yeah. Anyway. So 64 years. Now we got 68 years to the date. So not to say that there's any association. I'm not saying that. But that helps me remember 64 years, and then we're 68 years to the date. That's the only thing. I'm not making an association where, we getting back. We're going back to we can't say that all praise due to Allah. Are we are traveling from a state of being slaves mentally, and we are going back into our original state of we're not in a condition to be slaves. We could say that. +4. Okay. Islam for American so-called Negroes. Islam. It says, if you are in doubt as to my religion, me speaking now, from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if you are in doubt as to my religion, know that I serve not those whom you serve besides Allah, but I serve Allah who causes you to die. And I am commanded to be of the believers. That's in the Holy Quran, chapter 10, verse 104. Now, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad continues to say, according to the past histories of prophets and reformers, the very people to whom they were sent with the light of truth were their rejectors and even their enemies. According to the past histories of prophets and reformers, the very people to whom they were sent with the light of truth were their rejectors and even their enemies. So two things come to mind when I read this, where Jesus says in the Bible that a prophet has no honor in his own hometown. And it also asks us in our lessons, why did Musa have a hard time to civilize the devil? So Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying here, according to the past history. So according to history, and that's where we get our history, it says histories of the prophets and reformers, the very people to whom they were sent with the light of truth were their rejectors and even their enemies. So we're thrown into that darkness. It says, when it comes the time for a change in the life of a people, there are those who will not appreciate a change. They are suspicious, in doubt to that which is other than what they have been believing all their lives. The people of Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus were in doubt as to what those prophets brought to them from Allah God until Allah brought about a showdown between the two. It says the people of Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus were in doubt as to what those prophets brought to them from Allah God until Allah brought about a showdown between the two. The so-called American Negroes are so gravely deceived by the white man's Christianity and Bible that they doubt everything that has not the white man's approval. Again, the time has arrived for a change. This time it is universal, and the so-called American Negroes are now the great problem to awaken. They are made to believe that all other than the Christian religion is false and idol worship, while the Christians worship idol gods in their churches and religious literature. They have statues of wood, metal, and imaginary pictures of God, angels, prophets, and disciples that they bow and revere them as if they could speak. I want to briefly add, nowadays, because we are reading it in 2025, so-called Christians ain't the only ones. I see a lot of us who have taken on these different various practices of putting statues and worshiping things that are other than self, and basically committing idolatry. Oh, another thing I wanted to bring forth, make mention of, it says, Abraham said, you have only taken idols besides Allah by the way of friendship between you and the world of this life. So he's given in the Holy Quran, that's chapter 29, verse 25. giving us a criteria or a view, a lens to look at. It says here, you have only taken idols besides Allah by way of friendship between you and the life of this world. So you have friendship, us, today, 2025, have made friends with people in the life of this world, and that friendship has caused a rift between us and Allah by way of idol worshiping. And that's not spooky. I'm not talking about no spookiness. It's the fact that we hold um, these different celebrities in higher esteem than our brothers and sisters. It says here, how do you in the Bible? How can you worship a God who you have never seen, but hate your brother who you see every day? So how is it that we hold these different celebrities and to a higher esteem? We exalt them higher to the same level. This is what it means when Allah says, um, "Take no idols besides me, right on the side." So anything exalted above yourself, you putting it besides Allah. You say, "Oh no, well I keep Allah higher than that." No, no, no. Allah doesn't want anything exalted besides Him. So that's what it means when we have friendship with uh, the things or the people of this world's life, these celebrities and athletes and things like that. When we are buddy with them and we hold them to a higher esteem than we would hold our own brothers who are submitting to the teaching of Muhammad or submitting to righteousness, when we hold them in higher esteem, when you hold a celebrity to a higher esteem than you would your brother who is striving to be righteous, and that's what Abraham is saying in the Holy Quran. You cause a rift between you and Allah by way of holding them in a higher esteem than you would your own brother. So when it says here that they have statues of wood, metal, and imaginary pictures of God, angels, prophets, and disciples, that they bow and revere them as if they could speak, it's not just talking about quote unquote Christians, it's talking about all of us who take these things and make them, we exalt them and make them objects of worship. We view them higher than we would our brother. And it says, as if they could speak. I take that as speaking the word of God. We are so dependent. And it shows us, even with this whole thing with the Super Bowl, it shows us that we're so dependent to wait for celebrities to say things that we ourselves could say. Why is it so important when Kendrick Lamar makes a small reference to God, but we have people who are speaking truth every single day and they don't have the platform, but they speak in bold and raw truth? They should be viewed as much more powerful than some type of insinuation from somebody like Kendrick Lamar, from somebody who's like a celebrity, because they can make all the insinuations that they want, but they lack the power to make positive change if they're not leading you right and direct to God. You get stuck. It's like you see a sign that says, let's say you going to I don't know, you going to out here, the beach, and you see a sign that says beach, and then it's got the number 3 next to it. You stop at the beach. Oh, we must have got here. No, the number 3 means that you got 3 miles till you get to where you're trying to go. So when we see these celebrities and they making small insinuations, we don't view them as signs. We say, "Oh man, this is it," and you can stop right there and say, "Oh, this is what we've been waiting for." No, that's not what we've been waiting for. It's a sign to show that something that you have been the destination that we need to go to. It could be close, but that ain't it. And so we need to stop. This is what the Most High Muhammad is saying: is we hold these imaginary pictures, these celebrities in such high regard as if they are the sign or the destination, as if they are the destination of what we need to get to. And that's not right. That's wrong. It says here, angels, prophets, and disciples, that they bow and revere them as if they could speak. The worst of all, the pictures and statues are not of God, his angels, prophets, and disciples of Jesus. I'm going to say that again because it's not. This is what the whole concept of wearing this different lenses of the teaching of Most High Muhammad. It's not limited to what is written. It's also expanding of what is in our environment. So if we say, "Oh, well, I'm not Christian," it says here, the worst of all, the pictures and statues are not of God, his angels, prophets, and disciples of Jesus. So what else in our environment are not of God that we hold in higher esteem? When we look at these, it says the pictures and statues are not of God. Well, where else are we seeing pictures and statues? Well, when we look at the TV, that's a picture. It's a moving picture. When we look at these different celebrity celebrations, and they got the Oscars and the Grammys, well, what are they handing each other? Statues. So somebody who is receiving a Grammy and thinks that they're going to be speaking the true word of God, those things are not in alignment. Like we said before with the story of Cain and Abel, the heart is not aligned with the mind, and the heart and mind are not aligned with the body. There's a disconnect. These different things in society are they exist all over the place. It's not, where do these celebrities things come from? It comes from the Roman circus or the Roman games. They're allowed a certain degree of ability to say certain things, but only to captivate the attention of the people. Even in old Roman times, they would have a make a fake revolution in the stadium, in the Coliseum, they called it. In the Coliseum, they would have a makeshift revolution to keep the people activated and applauding and keep their attention. And then when the Coliseum was all done, what the people do? Did they revolt? Did they go into having a rebellion? No, they went right back to the lives that they were leading. Why? Because they were so convinced that the people who were entertaining them had their best interest in mind. And that's not the truth according to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's the same thing in Christianity. Christianity they'll wave around this Bible. I got the truth. They'll wave around a picture of Jesus. They'll wave around and say, truth shall set you free. And our people who love truth will go and then they'll get swept up. Same thing. It's the same exact thing. The worst of all, the pictures and statues are not of God, his angels, prophet, and disciples of Jesus. Therefore, they are false worshipers and ignorant enough to love the falsehood. Isaiah and Ezekiel have well described them. The Christian believers claim to believe in one God. It's not just the Christian either today. Well, we say we believe in one God. Should not the divine supreme being destroy those who serve and worship gods other than he? Say that again. Should not the divine supreme being destroy those who serve and worship gods other than he? It was the Christians that was catching all the hell during this in 1957, but now it's going to be all of us. It says here, Allah God does not approve you and I worshiping his angels and prophets as his equal. It is a disgrace. The religion of Islam teaches that Allah is one God. The religion of Islam teaches that Allah is one God. Again, the Holy Quran teaches that what you worship besides Allah is the firewood of hell. Now, what does that look like amongst Muslims? Well, in the Orthodox Islam, they ashhadu an la ilaha illallah means I bear witness that there is one God, and I bear witness ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Well, when you value the sunnah, meaning the way, sunnah just means the way. So the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, the sunnah, the way, when you value the way more than what's written in the Quran, you're exalting a servant, a messenger, to the same level as Allah. And many of us, we fall victim to those things. We fall victim to exalting one man to the same level as to Allah. There's but one God. Should not the divine supreme being destroy those who serve and worship gods other than he? I did not want to say this, but I got to submit. I watched the Savior's Day performance from Minister Ishmael Muhammad, student minister Ishmael Muhammad, and today's the 23rd. Savior's Day is on the 26th, and I'm listening to it. Profound message. All praise due to Allah. I got a lot of value from that. Many of the words brought me to tears in a real way. However, it's Savior's Day, but the brother kept exalting Minister Farrakhan. It's Master Farad Muhammad, and then exalting Minister Farrakhan. That is not pleasing in the sight of Allah. And then to top it all off, then raised up Father Flager at the end. And now that's a point of contention because the brother already, no, it's not the brother, Flager, not even, and calling the man father. That's so, all of it is disrespectful. Flager has in his church allowed homosexuality in his church, and nobody is righting that wrong, making straight that crooked, and then to exalt, and I say exalt in terms of bringing him forth and honoring this man because of some work he might have done before without making correct the mistakes that have been made. It's let's see. Holy Quran teaches that what you worship besides Allah is the firewood of hell. You doubt the truth of Islam while it is the religion of Allah, God, and the prophets whom you claim to believe. You doubt the truth of Islam while it is the religion of Allah, God, and the prophets whom you claim to believe. So there's no value of Catholicism to us. The principles of belief in Islam are one God, his prophets, his scriptures, his judgment, his resurrection of the mental dead. The main principles of action, the principles of a belief in Islam are one God, his prophets, his scriptures, his judgment, his resurrection of the mental dead. Those are the principles of belief in Islam. One God, his prophets, his scriptures, his judgment, his resurrection of the mental dead. The main principle of action. This is where I must submit to these instructions. The main principles of action. It says, keeping up of prayer, spending in the cause of truth, speak the truth regardless to whom or what, to be clean internal and external, love your brother believers as yourself, do good to all, kill no one whom Allah has ordained to be killed, set at liberty the captured believer, worship no God but Allah, and fear no one but Allah. The above are the teachings of the prophets. So the Most High Elijah Muhammad, thankfully, just encompassed for us a very specific instruction and also summarized the life or messages, excuse me, that's the better word, summarize the messages of all the prophets of Allah. So not only does it go with belief, but it also goes with action. And these two must be aligned. The principle, I'm going to go over one more time and then we're going to close out. It says, the principle of belief in Islam are one God, his prophets, his scriptures, his judgment, his resurrection of the mental dead. So we believe in Allah being one God, and we believe that he has raised up prophets to deliver his message to us and to be examples and guidance for us through scriptures and for the purpose of judgment and his resurrection of the mental dead. The main principle of action. So our belief must align with the things that we do. We must keep up of prayer. That's one of the most difficult. But the Holy Quran says it's difficult unless you. The Holy Quran says it's not difficult unless you arrogant. So that's a cause of humility. So it says the keeping up of prayer, spending in the cause of truth, speak the truth regardless to whom or what. So that's why I have to submit. Be clean, internal and external. Love your brother believers as yourself. Do good to all. Kill no one whom Allah has not ordained to be killed. Now, I want to be real clear. Killing is not just the physical killing, because in our lessons it says, I want the heads of 4 devils. So killing can also be introducing truth where falsehood exists. When you introduce truth and falsehood can't exist in the same sphere. One has to die. So if you want falsehood to live, you're killing the truth. If you want truth to live, then you're killing the falsehood. So it says, kill no one whom Allah has not ordained to be killed. Set at liberty the captured believer. So you're going to need influence. Worship no God but Allah. But worship no God but Allah and fear no one but Allah. It says here, worship no God but Allah and fear no one but Allah. The above are the teachings of the prophets. Why should you doubt Islam and you know that it is the truth? Why should you doubt Islam and you know that it is the truth? There is no fear for you, nor shall you grieve today, if you will accept Allah and his religion, Islam. It is unlike your Christianity, which has really put fear in you, and your promise of help or defense comes only after death. I am commanded that I should serve Allah, and to his I submit. I hope to see you here on the 26th of this month for our convention. You're talking about Savior's Day, which is the birth of our Savior Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. So he's saying, I hope to see you here on the 26th of this month for our convention. All praises are due to Allah. Okay. Now, I'm going to open it up for questions, comments, concerns. I'm going to read the different comments that we have. We went over this sister's one. Thank you for being here. There are quite a few people here on YouTube and on Instagram. Okay. Let's go. It says, not if, when. I don't remember exactly what we were referring to. Walaikum salam, to the will of Allah. So complete submission to the will of Allah. So in going back to the definition of salam, or the root origin of salam, that trilateral root, give me 1 second. That trilateral root being salama not only means peace, but also completion. So the completion and complete submission to the will of Allah. God's cipher, divine point. I don't remember. All praise due to Allah. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about at that time. Old Testament. I think you're bearing witness that you are Old Testament. Which goes back to the concept. You have Old Testament, New Testament. We should have, if we're talking about completion, it should just be testament. This is, and that's where you find in the Holy Quran, chapter 5, verse 3. This day, not in the old days, not in the past. This day have I perfected my favor for you and completed. So it's not old, new. It's a completion. It's just testament. Teach. All praise due to Allah. This is just studying the sun. Break down Semite. Inshallah, we'll do that another day. Whole and complete equals Islam. You need to enroll in a minister's class. Teach black man. Question: is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad equal to Master Farad Muhammad? The answer is no. That equal sign. Because why would you need to say both? Anyway, question: what is your Fatan Allah Mwangi Bey purpose? What is your purpose? My purpose for what? What is my purpose for what? For life. So what I'm striving for, our prayer says, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah. So I'm striving to align my purpose, my life, the essence of my life, striving to encompass it to be my sacrifice to Allah. Here, my life is yours. Do with it what you will. And that's it's been hard. It's been difficult. That's my purpose, to submit to Allah. Because I might be, and I've had this. I might want to do one thing, But Allah want me to do something totally different. So it's easier, or not say easier, but it's it's simpler for me to say your will, not mine. Allah's will, not mine. God's will, not mine. And what makes it even harder, you start to read the Bible and the scripture, it says, if you commit your work to the Lord, to Allah, or to God in the Bible, if you commit thy works to God, He will uh, establish your plans for you. And most people, most people might think that that's a blessing. I find it could just be me being me overthinking, because I could be so caught up on trying to do what I want to do in the name of Allah, I might miss out on what Allah wants me to do by His will. Now, obviously, we know we if we don't know, we should learn. Allah is the best of planners. So even people who are striving to do what they want to do, Allah is going to find benefit. He gonna get His, basically. Allah's gonna get His. So even but even people who like the story of Jonah, and that was one of the stories that Minister Ishmael was talking on today that brought me to tears. You run away so far and get knocked back into your there's that quote from Master Uwe. It says most people stumble upon their destiny on the road they took to avoid it. It said most people stumble upon their destiny on the road they took to avoid it. So with those two wisdom in mind, it brings me peace. Say, okay, I really can't get if I am stating to Allah, my life, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for you, Allah, then I can't get too far outside of submission. All right. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? I see a few people on YouTube still. Um, if you would be so kind to do me a favor and click the like button or the dislike button, do some form of engagement so that the YouTube algorithm can you basically commanding the YouTube to let them know that you're here. So if you'll be so kind to either hit the like button, hit the dislike button, uh, drop a piece in the comments, make your presence known. Um, if you'll be so kind, I appreciate you for being here. If you are here, there's a few people here. I just want to say congratulations, simply because nowadays in 2025 they put out studies to show that um, people don't have a long attention span. So if you hear we an hour and 30 minutes, which is basically like a short movie, we hear an hour and 30 minutes in and you're still here, which shows that you have an attention span that is far greater above average. Most people's attention span is no more than 15 seconds. Nowadays, it's more like 7 seconds, which Instagram knows that. These different social media networks, they know that, which is why they have reels. You have about 2 seconds to captivate someone's intention in order to keep them. And so if you're still here an hour and 34 minutes later, I just want to, give you your recognition and basically, well, not only just thank you, because it's not just for me, but just to show you that you have a greater attention span than the rest of, you know, the average society. So all praises are due to Allah for that. And congratulations, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm saying congratulations for your developed attention span. Okay. So thank you, those of you who have engaged with it. If you are still here, There's a difference between hitting the hearts and stuff like that and clicking the like button. So if you'll be so kind as to hit the like button, um, to tell YouTube that it's got some people up in here, I would greatly appreciate that. And without further delay, I want to greet you as I came in the universal understanding of peace. Assalamu alaikum. That concludes Islam for the so-called niggas.